What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the current 2023 payroll for the Texas Rangers, and I think it's the highest that they've had in the team history. I couldn't quite verify it because when I would look it up, I got different numbers and things. But just for fun, I did pull this up. This is kind of an archive of opening day payrolls. This is 2010. It was 55 million. They made it to the World Series on a $55 million payroll, and then they did it again the next year, a little bit more, 92 million. This is a guy who just kind of had an archive of these things, I guess. So I went back a little bit, at least to 2010 to see. Then they got up to 120, and then they got up to where'd they go? 114, and they are at 136 in 2014. So they've spent more than most people think. 142 in 2015. I couldn't find anything much more than what they're going to be at going in to 2023. There's 144. Here is 115. Or sorry, total is 175. That's actually close to what they're going to be at now. And 144. So it seems like they hover around the 140s, maybe pushing the 150s. This was 25 man, I guess was 104. So this is not the most complete list, but my point with that is they've sometimes they've spent a lot, and well, 2020 was a little different. Sometimes they've spent a lot, and sometimes they haven't. 2021 was probably one of the first years in a while they've been on maybe the lower end, because that was 84 million. Most of that was probably like, whoever was left over from other contracts. And then, of course, in this last season, they were on the higher end of the league average because Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray. So anyway, a little trip down memory lane there, if you will. But this is where we're at now, because we're talking about the present, we're talking about the future, what's next for the Rangers. And it's an exciting time, as we've discussed. Jacob deGrom, second to Corey Seager on the payroll, and Corey Seager is almost 25% of the payroll, which is crazy to think about. But I don't think they've ever spent money like this, is my point of that other page. I mean, this is really serious, and they're not done yet. As far as I know, they're not done yet. So anyway, taking a look here, this adjusted salary column is what we're gonna want to look at, because like for Odorizzi, they did get some cash from Atlanta, I think. Otherwise, everyone else is pretty similar here. And the luxury tax salary, a lot of that still confuses me, so just full transparency on that. I'm not going to lie to y'all. But they're not near the tax threshold. It is 233 million, and I think as you continue to go up, there's different tiers. It's something like whatever the highest tier is almost 300 million, and I think what's it called? I think you get taxed like 80% for every dollar you spend, so it starts getting pretty crazy. I saw that because I was reading an article about the Mets and how their owner does not care because he's worth like $50 billion. So he's like, bring on that tax. We're going to keep spending. And they did with Justin Verlander. But I digress. We're talking about the Texas Rangers here. So they're not even close. After all of these additional numbers, they're still 33 million under the tax threshold, which is crazy. But that payroll number that I was showing on the other tab, I assume is probably this, either the 151 or the 176, because you do have to factor in arbitration, which all these guys listed here, Garver, Lowe, Hearn, Brett Martin, and Jonathan Hernandez, all will receive arbitration contracts, as well as the pre-arbitration guys, which is a handful of the roster, because they got a young roster, A lot of these guys, mid-20s, early 20s, some in the late 20s a little bit, so they got a relatively young roster. But yeah, as it stands, the active payroll is 151 million, and will be pushing about 175 by the time you factor in arbitration. Now, technically, you don't have to get arbitration either. They could say, you know what, Nathaniel Lowe, you just won a silver slugger. So here's $100 million over the next 5 years or whatever they would think, right? They could still give these guys deals because that's how Atlanta has done it. And they've locked up Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. and going blank, Austin Riley, that's one of them. He signed that like $250 million deal. So they've locked up all of these guys by doing those contracts in advance. So a little bit of my knowledge on contracts. That much I do know. So what confused me was this luxury tax payroll, because I understand, like, yeah, okay, they got to pay taxes still, just generally speaking. And then I don't know what the benefits are. I assume that's supposed to be incentives, maybe, because in the case of someone like Andrew Haney, his salary is $12.5 million a year, but it can become a $37 million deal, going from 25 to 37 if he hits these incentives. So that is my assumption, is if you're factoring in, you know, okay, everyone's going to hit their bonuses, so to speak, then you factor that in. And obviously the salaries of the minor leagues, which I've been pretty vocal about that before. I don't think they get paid enough. That is pretty crazy. I assume that's on the 40-man, because there's no way that's all of the minor leagues, right? There's no way that's every minor league player they have is getting a grand total of $2 million. I assume like Cole Winn, Owen White, those guys are a part of that $2 million. So even with all of that, they're still $33 million under the tax threshold. And my understanding from these press conferences and interviews with not only the players but the owners and just the overall front office, Chris Young, all those guys, they want to win. They are tired of losing, and they want to do it now, because the Rangers, in one way or another, have been a laughingstock team in the MLB. I'm not afraid to say it. It's true. We all know it. I see all the comments about how we're this and we're that, right? But as a fan and as someone who closely follows the team, it is very good to see them spending. Now, I do think about the perspective of someone like myself or any fan really complaining about teams buying their way to a ring. But my complaint was not that for the Rangers. It was just they weren't spending at all. And they had these leftover contracts. I mean, that archive, I'll actually open it back up real quick. If we scroll down to 2014, which I want to see this, by the way, 2022, Dodgers at almost $300 million, dude. Insane to lose to the Padres in the division series, or I think that's what happened, right? They lost to the Padres in the division series. Anyway, some big payrolls there. But if we scroll down to 2014, the Rangers' payroll was 8th in baseball, right? $136 million. Pretty respectable amount. Certainly above or around league average. But they technically had Josh Hamilton's contract still. I think part of it. The Angels didn't take all of it at that point. I think the second time they got Hamilton back, it was on the Angels' money. And you can see them above the Rangers too. The 1 year that they've made the playoffs with Mike Trout, they spent $150 million, right? So they had Josh Hamilton on their bill. They had Shin-Soo Choo just was signed in 2014. Elvis Andrus extension. Adrian Beltre was on there. And did I say Prince Fielder already? That was the last one, was Prince Fielder. He had a big contract as well. The controversial Ian Kinsler trade. He might have really only been on the bill in 2015. But, yeah, they've spent some money before. But after they made the playoffs in 2015 and 16, I felt like it dipped. We'll look back at the numbers here real quick. So 2017, missing the playoffs, they were at 175. Darvish is another guy that was probably on there. 2018, they were at 144, so kind of back to that average. And then they just slowly fell back. I mean, 104 is still a lot, right? And 2020, like we mentioned, is not really anything. So these contracts started closing off, and then I was just waiting for them to spend money again. But yeah, it's not cheap to run an MLB team, and Texas is technically a small market, although it's like one of the biggest states. So I'm getting a little bit off topic, to say the least here. But they're spending. I'm glad to see it, because you do at some point have to put money in to win, right? And it's not that they're only doing that, They have all of these guys down here: Owen White, Cole Winn, Bubba Thompson, Leody Taveras, Josh Smith, Cole Reagans. They have so many prospects. This is just on the 40-man, I think. Yeah, this is on the active roster, so it's going to be quite the stretch for the team. The main reason I wanted to make this video, I'll wrap it up here because I am getting a little bit rambly, is they still have plenty of room to spend. That was my point. They can go get Rodon, no problem. They can go get Kodai Senga, no problem. They can go give Michael Conforto $20 million a year if they want to. Cool. Go get Benintendi, go get a bullpen guy. I made the video yesterday discussing what I think they should do next, and this is a little bit of supporting evidence for that, is you are way below the tax threshold, and other teams are way above it. Not that they need to necessarily spend close to $300 million, but they have the luxury, no pun intended there, they have the luxury to do so. And I think if they're going to, at least go get Carlos Rodon, right? At least go get yourself another ace, a backup for DeGrom. I have seen people talk about a 6-man rotation. That could be interesting, right? You could get DeGrom, Rodon, Perez, John Gray, Andrew Haney, and then like Jake Odorizzi as the 6th man. That would be crazy. Interchangeable with Kodai Senga somewhere if you ended up signing him instead of Rodon. So let me know what y'all think of this. Are you excited to see them spending a lot of money on a lot of good players? Because some of the old ones, the old payrolls, they just kind of had lingering contracts, right? This is the first year they've had in a while where there's no deals that are hanging over from players that they don't have anymore. Because Odor has been gone for a while. That was one of the last ones they gave out. Elvis was traded not too long ago in the grand scheme of things. He had a big extension. Who else? Unfortunately, Adrian Beltre is retired, right? He had a pretty decent deal, which is crazy to look back on. He got like $18 million a year as a Hall of Fame third baseman. It's just crazy. So, anyway, yeah, let me know what y'all think about the payroll. Do you agree with my last video and this one that they should continue to spend more? Because I think they should. And if you do, who do you want to see them get? But yeah, Jacob deGrom press conference was today. Very exciting stuff there. And I'm just super pumped for the season. We got FanFest coming up next month. Spring training will be here before we know it. And I want to see some more deals. So stay tuned. Share it with friends if you want them to stay up to date on Rangers news. Appreciate y'all watching, and I'll talk to y'all later.